Listen, both of you. I have something important to talk about. What's up? All of a sudden? Actually, I've made a decision about this house. The decision? Despite feeling bewildered that a decision was being made about our house without their input, I waited for Lisa's words. I've decided to give this house to your sister and her husband. What? Matt was arguing hard against the decision made by his parents and his sister and her husband. But listening to them, I felt that all the efforts we had made to maintain a good relationship with them were in vain. Then, maybe we should consider moving out. What are you talking about? This is our house. There's no reason for us to leave. Matt looked at me in surprise. I whispered to Matt as if confiding a secret. I have a plan. Selfish people need to be taught a lesson. All right. I trust you. Tell me the details later. Matt then spoke up clearly to his parents and sister's family. Understood. We'll leave. My name is Valerie. I am a working housewife and currently work from home. I live with my husband Matt and his parents. Technically, Matt and I built this new house, but his parents suddenly showed up. They had sold their own house, so despite our desire for a life just as a couple, we had no choice but to accept living with them. Unable to refuse when they said they had nowhere to live, we reluctantly agreed to live together. As you can guess from the circumstances that led up to living with them, our relationship with the in-laws is not exactly good. Since I work from home, I inevitably spend a lot of time with my in-laws. Steve, Matt's father, is retired, and Lisa, Matt's mother, has always been a homemaker. As a result, I often end up catering to their demands. Valerie, make some coffee, please. Oh, and one for Steve too. As she sat on the sofa watching TV, she ordered me without even looking away from the screen. Holding the freshly folded laundry, I sighed quietly so that my in-laws couldn't hear, and complied. If she had time, she could make her own coffee. I thought so, but couldn't say it out loud. Sure. Please wait a moment. After putting away the laundry, I headed to the kitchen. The requests of the in-laws always come first. It's a hassle, but this is the most peaceful option to avoid more complaints. I prepared coffee in their favorite cups and placed it on the living room table. Lisa, without even touching the teacup or saying thanks, looked at me with a displeased expression. Come on. You always lack consideration. When someone asks for coffee, it's normal to serve something with it. Steve took a sip of the coffee and complained. What's this? It's lukewarm, before pushing the cup back to me without looking. I silently took his cup, went back to the kitchen, remade the coffee with boiling water, and returned to the living room with the coffee and some sweets I had prepared. I was used to this kind of thing. Every day they would complain about something, make snide remarks. And in the end, they never lifted a finger themselves. The food is too salty, too bland, there's dust on the shelves. The lawn hasn't been weeded. Every day, they never stop finding something to complain about. My in-laws, who have unilaterally moved into our house, are just too much with this attitude. But if I let them realize how I feel, their harassment will only increase. With that in mind, I keep playing the role of the good daughter-in-law they expect, forcing a smile on my face. By the way, Valerie, when are you planning to have children? While looking at the newspaper, Steve spoke to me. Yes. Matt is our precious heir. It would be problematic if you can't have children. Really, Valerie, you're nearly in your 30s. You should start thinking about having children soon. I want to see my grandchildren. Matt and I, enjoying our work, have no plans for children yet. However, our old-fashioned in-laws, of course, don't understand that. They are constantly dissatisfied that I'm not pregnant yet and keep grumbling. Originally, Steve was a company employee, and Lisa has always been a homemaker. I wonder what they expect Matt to inherit. Thankfully, Matt shares my modern views. Children are a blessing from heaven. I've been able to fend off their attacks recently with this line. Even if we explained our thoughts to our in-laws, it wouldn't resonate with them. So, stating the obvious would be pointless. Honestly. You're too relaxed. Maybe you can't have children. Have you considered getting checked at a hospital? Ignoring Lisa's remarks, I went to the washroom to pick up the next batch of laundry to wash. One weekday afternoon, an unwelcome guest arrived at our house. It was Matt's sister, Claire. I wasn't very fond of her either. Hi there. I just dropped by. Hi, Dad, Mom. Nice to see you, Claire. Make yourself at home. Let me be clear, this is Matt's and my house. I feel nothing but stress from my in-laws, who act as if this is their own house. And from Claire, who behaves as if she's visiting her parents' home. Oh, Valerie, you're here. Hi. Having finally noticed me, Claire greeted me carelessly. I smiled and said, please, make yourself comfortable, and quickly began preparing coffee. Of course, Claire is not on my side. Nevertheless, with a work deadline looming, I couldn't spend all my time on housework. I prepared tea and sweets, then told the three of them that I would be working in my room. They always find something to ask for and make snide comments. What's with that? Are you using work as an excuse to avoid spending time with us? But really, your work is just playing on the computer, right? Work means working outside, you know. They don't understand remote work and, as expected, complained. At first, I tried to explain, but soon realized it was futile as they never intended to understand my work. Really, being supported by Matt and relaxing all day, that's a failure as a wife. Exactly. For a wife, you're too comfortable. But hey, if you're really working, you must have some savings, right? Lend me some. Claire, already married but carefree with money, smiled slyly and extended her hand toward me. Every time I went shopping with her, she claimed to have forgotten her wallet, pushing the payment onto me, but I never got that money back. Moreover, the shopping was mostly for clothes, shoes, and accessories for her. So I avoided going out with her due to her terrible behavior. Matt manages all of our finances. I don't have much money to use freely. This was one of the excuses we came up with to prevent Claire from taking our money, by claiming I didn't have it in the first place. I see. Losing interest, Claire then engaged in a different conversation with my in-laws. I told them to go back to work and return to my room. Fortunately, Matt was on my side. When he returned from work, he always checked on me and even cautioned my in-laws and Claire. However, the situation rarely improved. Since childhood, Matt had always felt lonely as his parents always favored his sister, Claire. Claire, being clever and academically excellent, was probably the star of their parents' expectations. Matt's grades were decent, but he must have constantly felt the pressure of being compared to Claire. Moreover, Claire, who has always been self-centered, couldn't resist getting what she wanted. For instance, the time she took the gaming console and games Matt had bought with his allowance. When Matt complained to their parents, they said, "Your sister wants it, so as a brother, you should give it to her." As a result, he couldn't get back his games or his money. Such incidents probably led to Matt gradually losing his patience with his parents and sister. After graduating from college, Matt moved out and since then had minimal contact with them. Yet, unexpectedly, they started living with his parents. Matt seemed fed up with this arrangement. Sorry, Valerie. I know it must be tough having to spend more time with my parents and dealing with all the unpleasantness. It's true that it can be troubling, especially on busy workdays. But lately, I've found ways to cope. Honestly, I want to move out. It's strange to think we should leave when we built this house. Is there any solution? More than anything, I'm happy that you're on my side, Matt. Don't worry, we'll find a way. Thanks, Valerie. Matt looked at me with the kindest eyes and smiled. I always loved his overly kind nature. With Matt by my side, I felt we could overcome anything. However, one day, a decisive incident occurred. It was on a weekend. Matt and I both had a day off and were in the living room with his parents. Listen, both of you. I have something important to talk about. What's up? All of a sudden? Actually, I've made a decision about this house. A decision? Despite feeling bewildered that a decision was being made about our house without our input, I waited for Lisa's words. I've decided to give this house to your sister and her husband. What? I was speechless at this unexpected statement. Matt, beside me, also wore a look of shock. At that moment, Claire and her husband entered the living room without ringing the doorbell. Hello. Oh, have you already started the conversation? We were just beginning. Perfect timing. So, this house is ours now. You two should move out quickly. Lisa and Claire smirked and gestured dismissively at Matt and me. Claire's husband just stood there with an unpleasant smile, saying nothing. That's right, we don't need you two. You're useless. We don't have any use for you anymore. The four of us will live in this house. So, bye. Thanks for building such a nice house. Amidst this situation, Matt was arguing hard with his parents and sister's family. However, listening to them, I felt that all our efforts to maintain a good relationship with them were in vain. No matter how carefully we explained the ownership and mortgage of the house, they would probably just proceed as they wished, as usual. Maybe we should consider moving out. What are you talking about? This is our house. There's no reason for us to leave. Matt looked at me in surprise. I whispered to Matt as if sharing a secret. I have a plan. Selfish people need to be taught a lesson. All right. I trust you. Let me know the details later. Matt raised his voice clearly, addressing his parents and sister's family. Understood. We'll leave. Upon hearing Matt's declaration, they seemed jubilant, almost jumping with joy. Frustrated and unwilling to stay any longer, Matt and I went to our room to pack. It took us about a week to prepare for the move and find a new place to live. But eventually, we were able to relocate. Naturally, we kept the location of our new home a secret from his parents and sister's family. By taking over our house and making it their own, they seem to have lost their attachment to us. Not one of the four in-laws asked about where we moved to. Life with just the two of us was more comfortable than I had imagined. And we were living happily. One weekday, about a month after moving, Matt was out for work, and I was home, engrossed in my computer work. In the midst of this, my smartphone rang, showing an incoming call from Lisa. I should have rejected the call, but reluctantly, I answered. Valerie. What on earth is this? Startled by her sudden shouting, I pulled the phone away from my ear and asked what was happening. Why are you so calm? The mortgage payments are overdue. Huh. Are you talking about the house mortgage? What else could it be? Today, we received a notice of demand. What's going on? Well, we have no reason to pay for a mortgage on a house we no longer live in, right? What are you talking about? Matt is part of our family, isn't he? It's only natural for a family to spend money on each other. I sighed loudly, making sure she could hear, at her utterly unreasonable logic. While we were living together, they never once offered to pay, and now, after kicking us out, they want us to pay the mortgage? How shameless. Do you remember signing some papers when we moved out? Matt asked for it, so Steve signed. I don't know the details. Those were the documents for transferring the ownership of the house. What? Her voice of surprise came through the phone. She was probably shaking in shock, as I had unexpectedly turned against them, who had always seen me as compliant. The composure in her voice was completely gone. We were forced out of our house, so it makes no sense not to change the ownership. Naturally, with the change in ownership, we're no longer responsible for the mortgage. This is deceitful. Unforgivable. Do you enjoy demeaning us like this? You're such a horrible daughter-in-law. Even if she accused us of deception, it was their own fault for irresponsibly signing without understanding the documents. But, as always, they wouldn't listen to reason. I had no intention of appeasing them any longer. Absolutely unyielding. The method to make my selfish in-laws suffer, which I had shared with Matt the day we decided to move, was simple and clear. No financial assistance whatsoever. Steve was retired, so he had no income source, only a pension at most. Lisa, a homemaker, was in the same situation. Claire's husband worked as an office worker, but Claire herself was a part-timer, supporting the living expenses for 4 adults. And the mortgage for that house solely on Claire's husband's income would be extremely difficult. Matt and I, being double income, had some leeway. Anyway, the mortgage payment is not our responsibility. The ownership is in your husband's name, so please handle it accordingly. Wait, Valerie. The conversation isn't over yet. I have said all I need to. Goodbye. Lisa was still ranting, but I hung up the call. After that, she called repeatedly, but I decided to ignore all the calls. I wondered if Matt had received any calls from them as well. Really, what a troublesome in-law family. Annoyed, I returned to my work. About 2 weeks after the sudden call from Lisa, on a weekend, Matt and I were spending a relaxing day off. We both liked staying at home, watching movies, and enjoying some fancy coffee, just taking it easy. However, our peaceful time was disrupted by a phone call. Matt's smartphone rang. It was a call from his sister, Claire. Matt seemed irritated but decided to answer. He put the phone on speaker mode, and I listened in. Yes? Finally, you answer. How could you ignore me, Matt? I'm busy. What do you want? Well, actually, could you lend me some money? No. Why not? I've lent you money several times before, but you've never paid me back. Do you think it's reasonable to lend more money to someone like that? Claire was momentarily speechless. She had never directly asked Matt for money. It was always me she approached. Claire seemed confused about how Matt knew this fact. Thought you could keep it a secret? I know you've borrowed money from Valerie many times. Did Valerie spill the beans? What a deceitful woman. How can you say that? It's all your own doing. Besides, this isn't the time to blame others. How dare you talk like that to me, Matt? How rude. It's hard to believe that's coming from someone asking for a favor. I'm hanging up now. Wait. I'm sorry, don't hang up. You should think more before you speak. So, why do you need money? I could almost see Claire's frustrated expression. It was rare for her to apologize to Matt, especially since she would never do so even when she was wrong. It seemed like she was in a really tough situation. Claire answered Matt's question in a faint voice. Didn't Mom tell you? We're struggling to pay the house mortgage. If this continues, we'll have nowhere to live. Please help. I'm begging you. I see. Just, I see? You should be more concerned. Your family is in trouble. What do you think, Valerie? Matt looked at me, asking for my opinion. Claire probably didn't understand his intention. Why are you bringing Valerie into this? Because Valerie was the one carrying the burden of that house's loan. What? Are you joking? Stop kidding around in such a situation. Claire let out a dry laugh. Matt continued with a wry smile. I'm not joking. Actually, Valerie earns much more than me. But she's always just messing around on her computer at home. She couldn't possibly have an income. I've told you before. Valerie is a designer for a famous brand. She chooses to work from home using her computer, balancing her work and household chores. I had no idea. I thought she was just a simple housewife living off your earnings. And now this. Claire seemed deeply shocked. I had previously explained to her and my in-laws about my work. Whether they didn't believe me or simply weren't interested. It appears my words didn't stick in Claire's memory. Eventually, I stopped trying to explain. But if you have money, you can continue to pay the mortgage, right? Matt asked Valerie. We're family, after all. Supporting each other is only natural. Claire's attitude had shifted back to being assertive. The financially careless Claire I always knew re-emerged. Just as I was about to retort against her bold demand, Matt finally raised his voice. I've had enough. After all the times you've made Valerie and me suffer, now you expect us to help when you're in trouble? Don't be ridiculous. Why are you getting so angry, Matt? Don't think our patience will last forever. I'm cutting off all contact. I'll block you. Stay out of our lives. Wait, blocking me? I thought you were just angry. I'm sorry, please help me. Apologizing now doesn't mean anything. You don't even understand why I'm angry. I don't want to deal with people who apologize so flippantly and stay away from Valerie. I'm ending this call. Matt ended the call immediately and blocked all contact from his parents and Claire's family. He suggested I do the same, so I followed his lead. Feeling relieved that we wouldn't have to deal with his family anymore. Matt, usually calm, was exhausted from his unfamiliar anger but smiled in relief when he looked at me. One evening, after finishing work, Matt came home visibly tired. How was your day? You seem tired. Did something happen? While preparing dinner, I asked Matt. He replied with a weary voice as he took off his suit. Today, my parents and sister suddenly showed up at my office. Why? Probably to get money from you. But since you work from home and they don't know where we live, they came to my workplace. So they went to your office just for money? Yes. As I set the table, Matt sat down. While eating, he continued. I was told there were visitors at reception. When I asked who, it was my parents and sister. I asked them to be sent away. I didn't meet them. That must have been tough. And it caused trouble for your colleagues. Then they started shouting about abandoning family and handing over money. The receptionist couldn't handle it alone, and security called the police. The company will now ensure they don't enter the premises. Police involvement is serious. But it's good that the company will handle it. Matt replied with a smile tinged with sadness. They were his family, after all. His feelings must be more complicated than I could imagine. Ultimately, they need to accept the consequences of their actions. They need to reflect. What I can't forgive is them hurting you, Valerie. I was inwardly shocked by Matt's words. Despite pretending to be okay, my in-laws' words and actions deeply hurt me. But Matt cared beyond the surface words. With Matt, I feel secure. He's someone I can trust. Thank you, Matt. No, thank you. You've always been there for me. After my in-laws and Claire caused a scene at Matt's workplace, they were severely reprimanded by the police. This time they were only given a severe warning. But they were told that if they repeated such behavior, they could be arrested. Since then, they haven't appeared at his workplace again. This should give us some peace for a while, Matt said with a look of relief. He had been hearing about his family's situation through a relative. Apparently, as expected, Claire and her husband's income wasn't enough to cover the mortgage, and they ended up in debt. However, terrified by the snowballing debt, they eventually decided to sell the house. Due to Lisa's and Claire's dislike for cleaning, the house was a mess. And despite being newly built, its value significantly decreased. They couldn't repay all their debts with the sale proceeds and now live in a cheap apartment. I've asked our relatives not to pass on any information about us. Everyone seems fed up with them and unwilling to help. That's for the best. I don't want anything to do with them anymore.
Yeah,
I feel the same. In fact, our new home is in a high-rise apartment building. We haven't told my in-law family our address. But we chose a place with strict security to prepare for any unexpected situation. We've asked the concierge, who is always there, to deny them entry if they show up. This way, we can cut ties with them. Just thinking about it makes me feel lighter. Our lives continue to be busy but fulfilling. Matt actively helps with household chores. And we spend our weekends together leisurely or sometimes go shopping. Sharing these moments as a couple is our greatest happiness. We're determined to keep this lifestyle going.